Hi, my name is Trent. I own a media company. We primarily do real estate. I'm a real estate photographer, videographer, and I'm going to show you the most basic and I think crucial settings for shooting bracketed photography for real estate, especially interiors. So we'll get into it. All right, so let's dive into the settings here. So it's important to note you need to put your camera in aperture priority. So on your dial, go ahead and put it on the A. And it's also worth noting this is a Sony A7 III with a manual lens attached. That does affect kind of how the settings will show up in here, so that's important to note. So jumping in, file format, obviously we want to go RAW. I do compress RAW so that the images aren't like insanely big. Aspect ratio of 3:2. Move on over to the right. Just go to drive mode. This is the bracket settings you're going to use. And you're going to want to put it at 2.0 EV5. That's very, very important. Bracket settings. Put a self timer of 2 seconds on for you. That's going to give you 2 seconds from the time you pull the trigger to the time the camera starts actually taking the photos. That'll give you enough time for any vibrations you might have caused when you pulled the trigger, because you know any movement is detrimental in bracketed photography. You want this thing to be super still on your tripod. Bracket order, very important. You want that to be negative, 0 to positive. Let's back out here. Let's move on over. If you're not using a manual lens, focus area will be wide, autofocus unless you want to go manual, but it doesn't really apply in this situation. I think that might actually be, yeah, that's pretty much it. So as long as you have those bracketed settings properly set up, you're pretty much good to go. ISO, ideally I think you just put it as low as your camera will go and let your camera do all the work. I'm guilty of putting it up to like 500. That way my brackets don't take as long to shoot and it doesn't just bog me down in houses and I waste too much time. So ISO, say 500 if you wanted to do kind of what I'm doing. Auto white balance, because we use an editing team for my company that they do a great job color correcting, and we've never had any issues with white balance. So I just put it on white balance and let the camera work. And then obviously in here you can access your bracketing settings if you ever need to access again. Once you have all that set up, go ahead and go to the menu. And then you're going to want to save these settings. Go to memory, or it might be recall. Yeah, it's recall. Click on recall, and it's going to look at all the settings you just set up. And you're going to click on that one, and it's going to save all those settings to the one dial on your camera. So then anytime you go to do a shoot, put the dial on 1, and you know that all your settings are good, and you can start taking photos.